Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Overdue podcast, a Madison College Library's production in association with the Creator Studio. We're recording here live at the Creator Studio on the third floor at the Truex campus. More about the Creator Studio later. I'm Kelly, one of the librarians here at the Truex Library. With me today are some of my colleagues, cohorts, comrades, Confederates, conspirators, and coworkers. We'll just go around the table and introduce ourselves and something we like.
Hi, I'm Mark, and I like college football.
I'm Mark, and I like ghosts.
Hi, my name is Dana, and I like a nice hot cup of mint tea.
Hi, my name is Christina, and I like the color red.
All right. I'm Kelly again, and I like graphic novels. On today's cast, we're going to discuss the Creator Studio as well as our new book club. Also, we have other segments such as Getting Nerdy with Dana, Forgotten and Unloved with Mark, Trivial Observations with the other Mark, and one with our personal recommendations that we're going to call Anything Goes recommendations. As I said, this is our first episode and hopefully not our last. We hope to put in new content about every 2 weeks. In addition, we're interested in your feedback, and we'll tell you how to do so at the end of the cast.
All right, so welcome to our first segment of the Overdue podcast. Today, I will be telling you a little bit about our book club for the spring 2017 semester. In the past, we've had a few experimental book clubs, but we're now making it official. We've chosen our official name, which is the Overdue Book Club. And we're calling this our Overdue podcast to go with it. We liked this name for its double meaning, and we've also come up with a great mission statement, and Christina is going to share that for you.
I sure am. So the Overdue Book Club aims to engage the college community in constructive dialogue on timely topics such as politics, science, society, and the environment through reading and discussing novels that are chosen based on quality of writing, depth of subject matter, and relevance to a diverse audience.
Thank you, Christina.
Of course.
That's great. So we hope to get everyone talking about some big issues. Last semester, we surveyed our readers on which topics they thought were most interesting to them. And based on the responses, we came up with cli-fi as our theme for this semester. Cli-fi is a relatively new genre, and it's short for climate fiction. So my fellow podcasters and I have been having a lot of fun with this project, and we have reviewed several cli-fi titles that we thought might be a good fit for the Overdue Book Club. Then we narrowed the selections down to 5, and each one of us read one of the books over the winter break. One was removed as it was found a little less than engaging, and which that still leaves us with 4 titles for us all to choose from. That's right, we're holding a vote, and you get to vote on which one you think will be the best for our book club. You can find the vote at our library website, where you can click on either the scrolling image to the book club page, or you can go to the URL at libguides.madisoncollege.edu/book club. You have until February 14th to vote, so take your time. And with that in mind, let's talk a little bit about some of the books. Alphabetically, the first book we have for you to consider is called A Friend of the Earth by T.C. Boyle, and Kelly's read that book. Kelly, would you like to share anything about this book for our listeners?
Sure. I really enjoyed this book. It's well written. I'm a little embarrassed I haven't read any T.C. Boyle, but after this I certainly will seek out more of his books. I thought it was thought-provoking, and even though there is some sadness in the book, I think it ends on a somewhat optimistic note. There's a line in the first few chapters where a character tells the main character, Ty, "To be a friend of the earth, you must be an enemy to the people." That quote was always in the back of my mind as I was reading the book. I don't necessarily believe it to be true, but I think Boyle wants us to keep that in mind as we're reading it.
Wow, thanks. That sounds like a really good read. Without giving anything away, did the author kind of tell you the exact cause of climate change, or was it left ambiguous?
No, not really, but he does let us know that California, it takes place in Northern California, has been deforested, and it's now a rainy and humid climate. Wheat and barley and hops are unable to be grown, I think, anywhere so there's no beer. But rice is able to be grown there, and so there's plenty of cheap sake, which gives terrible hangovers. And so, like I said, the old growth forests have been cut down, and the hillsides are just mudslides, so you can't really live there anymore. They have terrible storms, so not a happy place. And it takes place in 2025, so not that far into the future.
Wow. Oh, that does sound good. Thank you. All right, next, Mark read 40 Signs of Rain by Kim Stanley Robinson. Did you enjoy the book?
I did enjoy the book. I've enjoyed reading some of Kim Stanley Robinson's work before. He's a pretty popular science fiction writer. And yes, I enjoyed reading this book.
Awesome. That's great. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. Most of the book, the action in the book takes place in Washington, D.C., and in the near future, with a climate change event caused by a rift of an ice shelf breaking off, a rift about the size of a small United States, and its effects on climate and fairly immediate effects on climate change across the world. What's interesting about the book, I thought, is Robinson really focuses, and since the story is based in Washington, D.C., on the conflict of climate change between politics and science. Two of the main focuses are people in the U.S. government, and then also the National Science Foundation. And there's actually developing romance between two people there, and the metaphor being that if anything's ever going to be done about climate change, there has to be a relationship between politics and science.
Oh, wow.
An intimate one.
And sometimes uncomfortable.
Yeah. Right on.
Wow.
So if that's a selling point for you, if you like uncomfortable intimacy.
Oh. Well, all joking aside, that seems kind of eerie considering how similar it is to what's going on today.
Yes, over Christmas break, if you were following the news, it was discovered that there's a rapidly breaking off ice rift in Antarctica, about the size of Delaware, and it's about 5 miles away from completely breaking off. And it would be the largest, I believe, ever to break off once it does go. And there's already been quite a bit of speculation for those that are interested or believe in climate change of what this could mean in the future with rising sea levels, changing
Wow.
weather patterns.
Wow, what year was this written?
The book was actually written more than 10 years ago in 2003. So,
Wow, that's very crazy. Did you think it was at all prophetic?
as a result of what's going on now, potentially, yes. For me, the biggest selling point was, again, that conflict between politics and science, and trying to make the relationship better.
Yeah. Okay. Well, great. Thank you. Our next book selection changes things up a little bit. The third title you have to choose from is called Memory of Water by Emmy Iturranta, and Mark read this book. What can you tell us about your title, Mark?
Yeah, this book is different than Mark's book in that there's really no sense of urgency here. There might be a sense of like personal urgency because it's following the life of one single young woman in a Finnish hamlet, right? But whatever caused the environmental destruction has long since passed. So there's nothing we can change at this stage. She's just trying to make sense of her environment, her life, and it's both of those things at once, right? Water is, it's the memory of water, right? So water is sort of this central concept and pattern for how the story unfolds. So it's not always the direct story. A lot of times it goes backwards or spins around or seems to skip over details in the same way that like an underground stream would. but it feels really sincere and genuine. She's a Finnish writer. She wrote the novel both in Finnish and English simultaneously, and there's only the one novel. So it's won awards, but it does feel foreign, and that actually drew me to the story initially, right? I liked that feel.
Wow, that does sound really good. Is it something you would have read outside of the book club?
No, to be honest, I wouldn't have, but that has nothing to do with the story, really. It's that for the last 5 years I've been in a nonfiction phase, so I came to this book club specifically to be with people who read novels and help me read novels again, so I'm kind of like coming out of my shell now.
Excellent. Was there anything colorful or humorous about it that the readers could look forward to?
Oh boy. No. Not, well, maybe, maybe. I think I might have laughed a bit, but I think it was accidental, as in the author didn't intend for it to be funny. Because really, she's really sincere, which is lovely, and I like that. It feels authentic. But anything that one might laugh about is because it's pulling something up from your own personal life, right?
That sounds nice. Cool. Well, thank you. And that brings us to our last title, which was Odds Against Tomorrow by Nathaniel Rich. And Christina read this title. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so my book was published in 2013, so it's fairly new, and it does take place in the future, though it's a very sort of ambiguous future. There's no date given. I think it's not too far in the future. The technology seems pretty current day. But the main character, his name is Mitchell. He is a guy living in New York City. As a child, he was what lots of us would call anxious. He suffered from extreme anxiety, and he was also a bit of a mathematician. So now, as he's older, joined the workforce, he gains employment with a risk management company that advises corporations on how to minimize their risk in the face of different kinds of catastrophes. So he basically is like calculating all the risks of all these different kinds of, natural disasters or government takeovers or terrorism, warfare, all that kinds of thing. His character on its own, think of like the stereotypical insurance agent. He doesn't have a lot of friends, doesn't have much of a personal life. He just becomes obsessed with natural disasters. So when a huge storm hits New York City, the book kind of deals with the aftermath of what that's like for the people. And sort of how they cope with the emotional aspect of having everything gone.
Wow, that sounds really good. Something that I'd probably read really fast. Would you say it's a fast-paced book?
I would say it has kind of a slow build. Definitely the first maybe third of it is all just sort of trying to establish the characters. Once, the big climax hits, though, it goes very quickly.
Awesome. That sounds neat. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so there you have it, folks. 4 exciting titles to choose from. Make sure to visit our book club website and vote before Valentine's Day. And that's it for our first segment of our first podcast. Thanks for listening.
So for our second segment, I want to kind of welcome you to the space we're all sitting in. We are currently recording in the Creator Studio at Madison Area Technical College at the Truex campus. And this is a new space created by the libraries in September of last year. So a little bit about Creator Studios, what they are. Kind of think of it as a little space all about making. So conceptually, this is kind of a hot topic, and it's sort of a place where we can create a community environment between students, between librarians, between teachers, faculty, experts, and it's intended to be a gathering place to tinker, to partner, to experience successes and failures. It's about trying and refining. So it's a space filled with all different kinds of things that you can use to be creative, tinker with, and explore. So we kind of posed to you the question, are you the next Picasso, Steve Jobs, Benjamin Franklin? How will you know if you don't try? And that's what the Creator Studio is intending, for you to be able to explore those different skills you might have. The mission of the Madison College Library's Creator Studio is to be a place that encourages innovative thinking and creative exploration for group and individual learners. It's designed to build community and self-discovery by providing tools that offer hands-on experiences and learning through building, gaming, creating, reading, and writing. So here's a little rapid fire question to go around the table. I think we've all had shifts in here to kind of experience what the Creator Studio is like. In one word, could you describe the Creator Studio? And the challenge is not to repeat each other. So I'll start with you, Kelly.
All right. I'll say inviting.
Non-competitive.
Ooh, nice.
How?
How? Okay.
Colorful.
Colorful. Awesome. So hopefully that created sort of questions in your mind if you haven't been here yet as to what the Creator Studio looks like. So just kind of some questions to pose to the group. Anybody want to tell us what your favorite thing to play with is here in the studio?
I'll go. Probably because I'm not going to be the next anything important. What I really like to do, because I really like words and symbols, is to cut apart other people's work and paste it together in weird sort of ways. So I like going through magazines and newspapers and cereal boxes, whatever, and cut out words that other people took a lot of time choosing, and then rearrange them and glue them down into things that feel like poetry to me, but real poets would probably think sound terrible. But yeah, I love playing with words.
Nice.
Actually, to segue on that, I am most intrigued by the paper arts and possibilities of being creative with paper, and then as Mark is doing, actually taking words and potentially creating zines.
Cool.
And,
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Very cool.
Nice.
I like to use the Lego kits. There's a couple of them. You can make a Big Ben or the Sydney Opera House. There's a lot of different kits in here, and it's kind of mindless but really intense attention to detail at the same time. So it's a really great way to just kind of relieve your stress.
Definitely. I definitely think of this space as a stress reliever. And I think we can kind of return to activities we maybe did as a kid that we don't get to do anymore now, and use the Creator Studio that way to just have some time to ourselves and be creative again. Anything that surprised you about the studio, something you've observed or experienced while here?
I guess I've been surprised. When the studio opened and we've helped out at studio, I was expecting to get a lot of how-to questions, and I was a little bit worried. Would I be able to adequately show the different equipment to people? But I've been surprised, at least on the shifts I've had in here, at the amount of self-sufficiency from people. A lot of people just, if anything, just want a little introduction and then just want to, mess around with it on their own, whatever the kit is. So.
Yeah, that's exactly why I thought, when I was thinking of the word like how, it wasn't that somebody comes in and asks us, how do you do this? It's that they come in and sort of discover what how might mean for them with anything in front of them. Like, how can I make this have meaning for me? So I've had that same experience where I thought I was going to be asked to help somebody do some techie thing, which I wouldn't have been able to help them do. But nobody's asked me that. The only question I had was, is this fold right in origami? And I immediately was like, go ask somebody who knows how to do origami. She's right over there. And that totally worked out well enough. And yeah, I liked that aspect.
Yeah. And I think it kind of harkens back to the fact that in the Creator Studio, there's no one right way to do things, a wrong way.
Right.
You're able to kind of experiment, and if you can't figure out, you can get frustrated, or you can look for more resources and try to sort of figure it out. So cool, yeah. Well, we're excited to be recording inside the Creator Studio, and hopefully you'll come check us out. We're located in the 3rd floor of the Truex campus. Our room is B3211, and we are open from 10 to 2 Monday through Friday. You can also check out our website, which is located at libguides.madisoncollege.edu/Creator Studio. And there you can get a sense of what workshops are going to be offered this semester, as well as a lot of the different kinds of equipment that you can use while in here.
Awesome. All right, so welcome to today's first segment of Getting Nerdy. I'm going to talk about a couple of nerdy terms we can use to describe a story. Most stories fall into the category of being either character-driven or plot-driven. And these are two terms that help us talk about the style of a book or a movie, and they're also helpful to think about when we want to find a new book to read. A story that's character-driven has a character that's specific to this story and often deals with a lot of internal issues. They're usually flawed and memorable characters. As a reader of a character-driven novel, you can expect to spend a lot of time in your character's head, helping them to make the decisions that will dictate where the plot goes. Also, they'll often reflect on events that have already taken place. Because we see such an intimate view of our protagonist in a story with a character-driven plot, these characters are typically more developed, and the stories are often called literary fiction. A few examples of character-driven stories that you've probably heard of are To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, the A Song of Ice and Fire series by George R.R. Martin, The Martian by Andy Weir, The Help by Catherine Stockett, and The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. In a story that's plot-driven, it's often a complete journey that has a clear end goal, something that's already decided. The circumstances are beyond the control of the character, and the emphasis is more on the plot twists, the external conflicts, and the action. These are sometimes thought of as commercial fiction, and they usually fall into genres such as mystery, crime, romance, and fantasy, where the end goal in these cases would be to solve the mystery, or for the characters to fall in love, or for a frog to turn into a prince. So in these stories, we can usually pull out the protagonist and replace them with a completely different person, and the story would likely still turn out pretty much the same. So some examples of some popular plot-driven stories would be The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien, The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins, Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling, and Divergent by Veronica Roth, and Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. Of course, a story can either be character-driven or plot-driven, or some sort of mashup of the two. So, something to think about. Can you tell if one of your favorite books is character-driven or plot-driven? Either way, it's a great way to think about and discuss books. That's it for today's Getting Nerdy. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to getting nerdy with you next time.
Nice.
Okay, this is segment 4. I don't know if we have to number them. This is a segment of the pod we call Forgotten and Unloved, where we try and stir up some interest in a book that we feel is being wrongly ignored, hasn't been checked out from the Madison College Library for a long time. In the future, we'll take suggestions, and in the future, it may be any one of us who wants to advocate for a forgotten book. For this first one, I get to, and I made it a really selfish choice. I chose a book that I absolutely loved when I was 20 years old, read 2 or 3 times that year, and then haven't revisited for 20 years until now. So, the name of this book is My Name is Asher Lev by Chaim Patak, and if I mispronounced Chaim or Patak, I apologize. He's probably better known, the author that is, for The Chosen. My Name is Asher Lev is my favorite. I've read 3 or 4 of his books. This was my first. It's a coming-of-age story set in the 50s. It's the classic individual versus society thing. The difference here is that the society is a Hasidic Orthodox Jewish community in Brooklyn, and the individual is only being rebellious because he wants to follow his artistic impulse. He has this great artistic talent, but that doesn't work with Hasidic Jewish communities. So you got father versus son, with a mother being this like invisible force in there. You've got art versus religion. You've got symbol versus truth. You've got all those sort of dialectic things that bump up against each other. It also is pure storytelling in the sense that the author doesn't worry about sex or violence, doesn't need to, doesn't feel like he would do a good job writing that stuff. He even says that in the book. He has this sentence where the character meets his future wife and basically says, if you don't know what to write about, then you don't do it. So I'm not going to tell you much more than I met her and she was lovely. So I really love it. Again, My Name is Asher Lev by Chaim Patak. It hasn't been checked out for 8 years.
Oh, no.
It has a really ugly cover. It looks like this 70s version of Al Pacino. If you look past that, I think you'll find. No, that's not necessary. But we're old. I don't know. Maybe it's come back around again. I don't know. But I would strongly recommend it.
All right.
Thanks.
Cool.
The next segment is entitled Trivial Observations, and this reoccurring segment, potentially a recurring segment, we'll see how it goes after today, will feature 2 brief parts. The first part of the segment, we will feature the winning vote from our recent interactive poll on our book club, which you can find at libguides.madisoncollege.edu/book club. As the first poll right now is actually asking you to vote for the book to read this semester, we have nothing to feature yet, but please look in that spot for some fun interactive poll questions to come up, and we'll talk about them during this segment. The other part of the Trivial Observations segment is an open-ended trivia question for the panel here based hopefully on the theme of the discussion for the day. And since one of the major themes for this first podcast was our book club, climate fiction or eco fiction, I tried to come up with a question based on that. So the question that I have for our panel for today is, every year the risk analyst Maplecroft releases a climate change vulnerability index. Try saying that 3 times really fast. Or for short, CCVI. For 5 years running, from 2011 to 2015, the country that was most vulnerable to climate change disasters, and this is based on a number of criteria, the types of weather things that they might be susceptible to, but also the capacity that each country has to adapt to the anticipated threat. For a long time, as I said, for 5 years, Bangladesh held the honor of being the most susceptible to being the first of the countries to disappear in severe climate change. However, in 2016, they dropped to 2nd place and were overtaken by a landlocked country. So, for the panel, see if you can guess what.
Ooh, landlocked.
Landlocked, huh? See, and I was thinking coastal the whole time you were
Right,
talking.
and actually, if you look at the vulnerability index, most of the countries are close to a coastal, which would be close to a coast. So,
Right.
but there is a continent that actually has had a couple of landlocked countries show up on the list in 2016.
Wow.
Wow. Oh boy.
And if nobody wants to venture a guess, I can give a first clue.
All right.
Yes, please.
Yes.
The first clue is the continent is Africa.
See, that's what I was thinking.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
I'm not a geography person.
I'll throw out like
I have a geography degree, but I
Sudan
know
or
so
something.
little about
one of the
geography.
more deserty.
And see, and I was thinking of one where it had a lake that's going to dry up or salinate or
No,
something.
and you actually hit upon what would have been my second clue. So yes, there's this landlocked country has a significant lake which is drying up much faster than expected, and they have not been taking measures to deal with the issue. They are starting to run into serious freshwater issues.
Okay.
It is a significant lake.
Oh my
The
goodness.
name of the lake is also the name of the country.
Ooh.
Yeah, wow.
And that's the last clue.
See, and I took Africa in high school, so I should be
And I'm bumping up.
coming up with names.
Yeah, and see,
And
I'm
we had to
bumping up
learn the
against the
big
fact
rivers.
that I don't know a lot of names of African countries. And in theory,
Well,
I'm
they
educated,
keep
but
changing. So
yeah, let's say it's that.
it's not entirely our fault.
I think I could have answered this question better in 6th grade with the Carmen
Probably.
San Diego.
Actually, there is one more clue. You get 1/3 clue.
Oh, good.
brilliant.
And
Thank
the third
you.
clue is there are 4 letters in the name of this country.
Oh,
Is it Mali?
Chad.
4 letters, but they,
Chad.
Okay. Good
The
job.
4
Really?
letters worked more than the lake, but yeah.
fantastic.
So it's
All
Lake
right.
Chad?
Correct.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. Well, that's something to look into when you get back to your computers.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
I'm gonna look into that.
Well, thanks, Mark.
Yeah, nice
It's
segment.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So our next segment is the Anything Goes, right?
Anything goes recommendations.
Nice.
Okay. Did we all think about this for the last weeks and weeks and weeks?
Yeah, I had a bunch of things on my list and then I threw them out and settled on something.
Yeah, me too. I just came up with mine a few minutes ago.
Nice.
Nice.
All right, so who goes first?
I guess I can start us off, I think. So my recommendation for this podcast is a book I'm currently reading. I haven't finished it yet. But it's called The Way of the Writer, Reflections on the Art and Craft of Storytelling by Charles R. Johnson. I picked this up because it was recommended somewhere. I can't remember where. But if you have ever dabbled in creative fiction or nonfiction yourself, prepare to be inspired by this book. The authors, he's written a ton of stuff, book reviews, screenplays, teleplays, novels, nonfiction books. And he's been teaching writing for over 30 years. He's the winner of the MacArthur Genius Award. I mean, he's also super interesting, too. The book is part autobiographical, so he talks a lot about, like, Tai Chi and studying Sanskrit and cartooning, but it's also a lot about the craft of writing. I mean, he talks about some of the exercises he gives to his writing students, and it really made me think a lot about writing and a little intimidated by it, I have to say, as a not great writer. But it's beautifully written, and so if writing interests you at all, I would recommend it.
Right on. What's the title again?
The Way of the Writer, Reflections on the Art and Craft of Storytelling. And I think it just came out.
Nice. We need it for our collection then.
We do.
Yeah. I want to read it.
Yeah.
Cool.
I can go next with my recommendation. So this is a book that I read sometime in the past year, and it's by my favorite author, George R.R. Martin. I'm a big fan of the Song of Ice and Fire series, as everybody here probably knows.
Yes.
But this is not a dragon book. This is a vampire book. He wrote a vampire book in the 80s called Fever Dream. And it was one of those books that was so well written that I just kept thinking about it months and months and months after I read it as like fond memories, like as like a good friend, you know. So I highly recommend reading Fever Dream if you looking for a good book to read.
Good. It is a good one.
Nice. What kind
I'll
of
second that.
What kind of vampire are we talking? Are we talking like morally upright vampire? Are we talking like a little bit naughty?
Yes.
I would say
are they
morally upright.
upright?
Well, you get some of both. They're not all the same. There's more than one vampire, and
Is it more like
Oh.
Dracula or more like Twilight vampire?
Dracula.
Okay.
More like okay.
I mean,
Oh, really?
it's
He's a
definitely
real
not Bram
vampire.
Stokery, but
Right.
but yeah.
He has a soul, and he's
And he sucks humans' blood.
Actually, that's something you'd find out from
Okay.
reading from the
Yeah.
book,
Okay.
and
Okay.
you bring up an interesting question there.
Okay. Cool.
all right. Well, I'll go next. I'm going to recommend the television series Vikings, season 1 on Blu-ray. It's a historical drama on the History Channel, and their tagline was "Where Myth and History Meet," and it tells the story of the true life Viking Ragnar Lothbrok. I just like saying his name.
Ragnar.
And his wife, Lagertha. I think I'm saying that right. And their 2 children, Gita and Bjorn. And Rollo is Ragnar's brother. And the crew of the Viking ship and other town folk and the Earl. And I found the characters and the relationships with each other intriguing. I enjoyed the scenes of medieval life in Scandinavia. And of course, the Viking raids and battles are exciting. It's filmed in Northern Ireland, so it goes without saying, it's beautiful cinematography. And to all the women out there that think that they're not going to watch something called Vikings, I just want to let you know that my favorite character is definitely Lagertha.
The wife, yeah.
Yes. Not only is she a wife and mother, but she's a warrior, which they call shield maidens. And there's a scene where she's showing her daughter how to fish, spearfish for eels. And also a scene where she's teaching her how to weave cloth. So she would probably like that creator studio.
Nice.
And there's several instances in the series where she is a defender and protector of other women who have little or no power. And I look forward to seeing where her story goes in the next season. And also I recommend the Blu-ray because all the extras on it, they talk to several historians that work as consultants on the show. And so they discuss different historical aspects such as the ships and the Viking funerals and the fighting and the weaponry, and also about the shield maidens. And they talk to the actors and their training. And then the writer of the show is Michael Hurst, who's done several films, historical fiction, or historical Elizabeth, and the TV series The Tudors. So I recommend it highly. Lots of fun.
Cool.
Nice.
My recommendation this week is a 2015 animated short film called World of Tomorrow. It runs only 17 minutes. It was premiered at the 2015 Sundance Film Festival, where it won the Grand Jury Prize for Short Film. It was nominated in last year's Academy Awards in 2016 for Best Animated Short Film. It lost out to another excellent animated short film called Bear Story. And in 2016, Rolling Stone ranked World of Tomorrow as number 10 on its list of graded animated movies ever, whether they were short films or feature films. So Rolling Stone thought very highly of it. What the premise of it is, there's a young girl about 4 or 5 years old watching TV in the present day, and suddenly she's interrupted by a transmission on television of herself from 200 years in the future, a third generation clone of herself. And the clone wants to talk to her, and we find out by the end of the segment is also just trying to make a connection to what it's like to be human again, because in the various stages of her cloning, she's gotten further and further away from humanity. The film is very funny. It's very dark humor, and in 17 minutes, it says I think as much about our relationship with technology and things we should be thinking about with our relationship with technology. And I think a lot of full-length documentaries and movies do. One very funny segment in it is, in her first generation as a clone, she's given a job on the moon to create some robots that are run on solar power. And so she programs them to fear death, which would mean being caught on the dark side of the moon. So they essentially spend eternity just running to make sure that they're on the sunny side of the moon. And to kill time, they make up poems about their state of depression and send them out into space. It's a strange little film, but it's very creative. Since one of the things we were talking about today is a creator studio and creativity, I would strongly recommend it.
Cool. So I have a 4-year-old daughter, and the protagonist is a 4-year-old girl. Could my 4-year-old daughter watch it with me, or would it just creep her out?
I think this is more for those people that are 200-year-old
Right.
generation clones.
Right.
It falls more to that.
Okay.
The girl would, your daughter would be able to enjoy the creativity of the animation, but
Right.
there's some disturbing elements.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So what I'm recommending for today on this podcast is Midnight Oil. With his 70s, 80s band out of Australia, and almost everybody knows the song Beds Are Burning, but that comes from the album Diesel and Dust, and Beds Are Burning was the last track they wrote for that album. It happened to be the big one, but it's not the most beautiful, I don't think, and Peter Garrett, the lead singer, has since gone on to be an Aboriginal rights advocate, a politician in Australia. He's way big in environmental movements. I think Midnight Oil is the reason why I started to care about the environment when I was 16, you know. So I absolutely love the song Beds Are Burning. I think a lot of people do. But if you check out the whole album, you may find that there are songs that do almost as much for you, sort of emotionally, psychologically. And if not, then, you know, that's fine too. It's just one of those old bands that nobody listens to anymore.
Did you get a chance when they were at the Barrymore Theater about 7 or 8 years ago? Actually, Kelly and I had a chance to see that concert.
Oh, brilliant.
It was packed, and it was, I think
was
you would agree,
great.
one of the
Yeah.
best
Sure.
concerts.
What year
yeah.
did that album come out?
I want to say, you know,
1987?
could have been, yeah.
And they were singing about environmental issues
Yeah,
then.
and their next album, Blue Sky Mining, is really good too.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're awesome. But you know, and they age well too.
Yep.
You know, part of me wants to like insert at this point in the pod the beginning of Beds Are Burning, where it's like, dun, 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 but we don't know how to do
Well,
that.
that's
Well, you
thing
just
about-
did, though.
Yeah, there we go. I did it
That's
for
the
you.
thing about the Australian bands, Midnight Oil, In Excess.
Oh yeah, In Excess
Crowded
ages
House,
well.
or maybe Crowded House is New Zealand. But if they came out today, they would still be relevant.
Oh,
They would
absolutely.
still sound great.
Yep.
So
Yeah, In Excess is just like that. They'll still play that
Yeah.
on like 105.5, and you
Exactly.
just go, okay, yeah, I got that. That's good.
A very cool thing about that concert is Beds Are Burning. You know, instead of like a lot of bands waiting till near the end of the concert, they just stuck it in about the third or fourth song.
Nice.
And you know,
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not. But to fans of the band, that wasn't
Right.
the song they waited for. They,
No, right.
Yeah.
If you're a fan of a band, there's like
Yeah.
another 20 songs that you'd
Exactly.
love. Right. Yeah, absolutely. So, Midnight Oil.
Cool. Have to check that out.
Yeah.
All right. So are we done for today?
We have a little wrap up, don't we?
Yes. Well, that's it for today's podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your feedback. You can reach us at liveguides.madisoncollege.edu/book club. Next time on the Overdue podcast, we'll have the results of the book we'll be reading, so don't forget to vote. We'll also have some new segments, and we're working on having a special guest. So see you next time.